So, imagine your heart is just racing. You have like 30 unread urgent emails sitting in your inbox. Your phone is vibrating with a new notification every, I don't know, 14 seconds.
Oh, yeah. And your cortisol levels are just absolutely spiking.
Exactly. Your brain is basically begging for a reboot. But what if I told you that the most effective, highly technical manual for stopping that exact modern panic attack wasn't written by some, Silicon Valley neuroscientist?
Right. It was actually written by an ancient sage over 2,000 years ago.
Which is wild because, I mean, it sounds completely counterintuitive.
Oh, totally.
Ah.
We're so conditioned to think of ancient spiritual texts as these sweeping, poetic riddles.
Yeah, you picture like a hermit on a mist-covered mountain.
Exactly. Speaking in metaphors that are completely detached from the very real, visceral stress of a modern Tuesday afternoon.
And that is exactly why today's deep dive is so fascinating.
Yeah.
We are on a mission today to extract a remarkably practical, ancient blueprint for surviving modern burnout.
Yes, and we're doing this for you, the listener.
Right, whether you're trying to physically calm your nervous system before a huge presentation, or you're just desperately trying to navigate a world that feels increasingly designed to just overwhelm you.
And the source material we're pulling from to do this is truly extraordinary. We are looking at a specific set of notes and commentary on the Bhagavad Gita.
Specifically, Chapter 5, right?
Yes, Chapter 5, which is known as Karma Sannyasa Yoga. And out of that entire massive epic text, we're zeroing in on just two specific verses, verses 27 and 28.
And when I was going through the notes on these two verses, these shlokas, what really struck me is how utterly devoid of vague mysticism they are. Like, they don't read like a poem at all.
No, not a...
They read like a structural bridge, a very precise preview of the meditative practices that get detailed later on in the text.
And that structural nature is exactly what makes this so applicable today. My goal is to kind of walk you through the exact mechanics of this blueprint.
I can't wait.
We're going to examine how these verses describe the very real transition from being hopelessly overwhelmed by external chaos to finding an absolute, unshakable stillness within.
And it's not just a philosophical shift, is it?
No, that's the best part. The instructions are shockingly biological.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we figure out how you and I can actually use this in the middle of a chaotic workday, we need to know what exactly is the promise here?
Right, the end goal.
Yeah, what is the ultimate state these two verses say we can achieve?
Well, the text described the ultimate result of this practice as becoming a muni.
A muni, okay.
Yeah, in this context, that translates to a meditative sage who is intent on final liberation. But, the text doesn't just leave it at this vague idea of liberation.
Right, you get specific.
Very. It defines that state with a very specific compound Sanskrit phrase. It's Vigata Jichavaya Krota.
Okay, let me see if I can break that down based on the research. We are talking about a state of being entirely free from desire, free from fear, and free from anger.
That is the literal translation, yes. A state where those three specific emotional drivers no longer dictate your reality.
So, complete freedom from desire, fear, and anger. I have to admit, when I first read that, my immediate thought was, well, that sounds lovely, but it also sounds kind of impossible.
Oh, sure. It sounds like something you can only achieve if you literally abandon your life and go live in a cave.
Right. But the commentary on the text argues the exact opposite, doesn't it? It frames these verses not as an escape plan, but as like a troubleshooting manual for the human mind.
It firmly anchors the philosophy in pragmatic reality. What's fascinating here is its core acknowledgement. Basically, you cannot philosophize your way into peace of mind.
Yeah, you can't just think your way out of a panic attack or, deep burnout.
Exactly. If your nervous system is on fire and your senses are being actively bombarded, all the lofty philosophy in the world is totally useless. You have to stabilize the biological hardware first.
I love that. That reframing changes everything. It acknowledges that the chaos is real, and it actually gives you a sequence to deal with it.
It does.
So where does this manual tell us to start? Because, I mean, if I'm sitting at my desk and I'm totally overwhelmed, my instinct is usually to just try and power through it,
Yeah.
To type faster and breathe shallower.
And the blueprint starts by entirely pulling you out of that exact instinct. The very first instruction it gives is to shut out all external sense perceptions.
Set them out.
Right. In the original language, the phrase is spajinvat bahir bahan. It literally means pushing the sensory world, so things like sound, touch, sight, away from your immediate perception.
Which makes sense on paper, stop feeding the machine new data. But I am going to be the proxy for the listener here and just say that terrifies me.
It's scary to disconnect.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably easy to shut out the senses a few thousand years ago when the loudest thing in your environment was like a bird.
Sure.
But you and I live in an era where our jobs literally require us to be plugged in. We have endless digital notifications, algorithmic feeds, the constant hum of a 247 news cycle.
It's a lot.
If I don't answer my team's Slack messages, or if I ignore an urgent email from my boss, I don't achieve enlightenment, I get fired. So how is shutting out the world actually viable for anyone listening right now?
That fear of disconnecting is the exact modern manifestation of the sensory overload the text is talking about. We have to translate shutting out to our current reality.
Right.
The modern sensory object is that glowing rectangle in your socket.
Okay.
And it is engineered by thousands of very smart people to completely hijack your attention.
So true.
Shutting out external perceptions today doesn't mean becoming a hermit and, throwing your laptop into the ocean.
Thank goodness, because they are expensive.
Exactly. It means establishing absolute non-negotiable boundaries around your attention. It's what we might call severe digital hygiene.
Digital hygiene, I like that.
The text is urging you to consciously decide when the gates to your mind are open and when they're closed.
So it's really about intentionality, not permanent isolation.
Precisely that. It's the practice of taking a 30-minute break where the phone isn't just on silent, but it is physically in another room.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. It's setting deep work blocks on your calendar where all notifications are forcefully disabled. You see, you can't control the sheer volume of stimuli the world throws at you. The emails will always come.
Unfortunately, yes.
But you are the one who leaves the door wide open. You have to install a deadbolt.
Okay, I hear that. But let's look at the reality of how stress actually functions. Let's say I do it. I'm feeling overwhelmed, so I lock the door. I put the phone in the drawer. I close my email tab. The external noise is blocked.
Good first step.
But my heart is still pounding from the message I read 10 minutes ago. I'm still sweating. The intruder is already inside the house, so to speak.
Right, the physical reaction has already happened.
Exactly. How does blocking the outside world help if the panic is already physically inside my body?
And that is the absolute genius of the sequence in this text. It anticipates that exact problem. Yeah. Once you have stopped the influx of new data by shutting out the external world, the blueprint immediately moves inward to the physical body. It gives two very specific physiological commands.
Okay, what are they?
The first is to fix the gaze between the eyebrows. The second is to equalize the inward and outward breath moving through the nostrils.
Okay, let's take those one at a time, because the first one, fixing the gaze between the eyebrows, sounds like it borders on the mystical again.
It does sound a bit esoteric at first.
Yeah, like why not just close your eyes? What is the actual mechanism at play?
Well, think about what your visual system does when you are stressed or anxious. Your eyes naturally dart around. Your peripheral vision widens.
Like you're looking for danger.
Exactly. Biologically, your brain is scanning the environment for a physical threat, like a predator. This constant visual scanning requires an enormous amount of cognitive load. Your visual cortex is working overtime, processing all that fragmented data.
So by forcing your eyes to lock onto a single fixed point, you are basically cutting off the visual data supply.
You are drastically reducing the cognitive load on your brain. You're sending a signal that there's nothing new to look at, no threat to scan for. It forces the mind to stop jumping from object to object and anchors it in a singular focus.
That is fascinating. It's essentially a hardware hack to force the software to stop running background processes.
That's a great way to put it.
Which brings us to the breath. The text says to equalize the inward breath, the pra, and the outward breath, the apana.
Let's look at the physiology of a modern high-pressure situation. You get that highly critical email. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between a bad email and a physical predator.
Right. To the brain, danger is danger.
Exactly. It perceives a threat and triggers your sympathetic nervous system, your classic fight-or-flight response.
And the first thing that happens is your chest tightens and your breathing becomes incredibly shallow and rapid. You start basically panting without realizing it.
And that shallow breathing isn't just a symptom of the panic. It actively sustains it.
Wait, really?
Yes, it acts as a biological feedback loop. Rapid breathing signals back to your brain that you are still in physical danger, which keeps the cortisol pumping, which keeps the breath shallow.
Oh, wow.
And when that loop is active, your prefrontal cortex, The part of your brain responsible for rational, nuanced decision-making is essentially bypassed.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I want to make sure I'm visualizing this correctly. It reminds me of when a speaker gets too close to a microphone and it creates that awful, deafening screech of audio feedback.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
The sound goes into the mic, out the speaker, back into the mic, and it just gets louder and louder until someone unplugs it.
Yes. The rapid breath is the screeching feedback loop.
So by consciously stepping in and forcing the inward breath and the outward breath to be perfectly equal, say, breathing in for 4 seconds and out for 4 seconds, you are literally walking over and cutting the feed to the microphone.
You are forcefully interrupting the physiological loop. This verse is a profound early acknowledgement of what modern science now treats as standard protocol for acute anxiety.
Like box breathing.
Exactly. Equalizing the breath engages the parasympathetic nervous system. It sends a massive, undeniable physical signal to the brain that says, hey, we are safe.
And once the brain registers safety, the prefrontal cortex comes back online. The broader philosophy of the text calls this stabilizing your intellect, right? Your booty.
Yes, you cannot reason with a brain that thinks it is about to be eaten. You have to physically calm the hardware down so the higher-level cognitive software can actually boot up and run properly.
This is where things get really deep. We've locked the door on the outside world. We've cut the microphone feed on our own physiological panic by fixing our gaze and equalizing our breath.
The environment is quiet, the body is calm.
But the text doesn't stop there. It targets the deepest layer of all, which is the mind and the emotional traps we set for ourselves.
And this brings us back to that ultimate state we defined at the very beginning. Vigata icha baya krodha. Freedom from desire, fear, and anger.
The toxic trio. I was actually thinking about this trio earlier today, trying to map it onto a normal, everyday professional scenario. Because it sounds so dramatic: desire, fear, anger. But it happens in miniature all the time.
Give me an example of how you see it playing out.
Okay, here's a slightly embarrassing personal anecdote. A few weeks ago, I spent days working on this massive research document for our team. I poured my absolute soul into it.
Okay, I see where this is going.
That is the first part of the trio. Desire. I had an intense desire for validation. I wanted my team to read it and tell me I was a genius.
Which is a very natural human impulse.
But the moment I sent that document out, my stomach just dropped, because my intense desire instantly mutated into the second part. Fear. I was terrified.
Fear of what they'd say.
Exactly. What if they hate it? What if there's a huge typo on page 1? What if they think I'm completely incompetent? I spent 2 hours obsessively checking my messages, entirely paralyzed by the fear of their reaction.
Because your desired outcome was in the future, and the future is inherently uncertain. Your mind was trapped trying to control something it couldn't.
Yes. And then finally, my boss replies on Slack, and all she wrote was, "Received, thanks, we'll chat later."
Oh, no. And how did that make you feel?
I was furious. I was so angry. I thought, I spent 3 days on this and all I get is a thanks. That friction between my massive desire for praise and the very mundane reality of her busy schedule produced instant burning resentment.
The third part of the trio, anger.
Exactly. And of course, that anger just fed right back into a new desire to prove myself, which created more fear, and the loop started all over again.
That is a brilliant deconstruction of the exact psychological trap this ancient text is warning us about.
Yeah.
Desire, fear, anger. Repeat until you completely burn out. It is the ultimate engine of modern anxiety.
But this raises a really massive question for me, and I think it's the biggest hurdle for anyone listening who wants to apply this. If the ultimate goal of this blueprint is to be completely free from that loop, doesn't that just mean I stop caring?
How do you mean?
Well, if I drop my desire for a project to succeed or my ambition for a promotion, do I just become this apathetic corporate zombie who just drifts through life? It sounds like a recipe for completely giving up on your goals.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
that is by far the most common and perhaps the most dangerous misunderstanding of this philosophy. To understand why, you have to look at the broader context of the Bhagavad Gita itself.
Right.
This entire sprawling, profound dialogue is taking place in the middle of a literal battlefield.
Yeah, it's a conversation urging a warrior to stand up and do his duty, to take massive action.
Exactly. The text is emphatically not telling you to run away or to stop caring or to drop your ambitions. Freedom from desire, fear, and anger does not mean apathy.
So if it doesn't mean apathy, what does it actually look like in practice? How do I write a massive research document and care about its quality without getting sucked into the toxic trio?
It is about developing an impenetrable internal emotional sanctuary. Let's trace the entire blueprint back from the start.
Okay.
You set boundaries against external noise. You stabilize your physical body by fixing your visual focus and equalizing your breath. By systematically quieting the external and the physical, you are doing something incredibly vital for your mind.
What's that?
You are creating a microscopic but profoundly powerful space between a stimulus and your reaction.
Space between stimulus and reaction.
Yes. Most of us live our lives with zero space between those two things. You feel a desire and you blindly react to it. You feel fear and you instinctively lash out in anger. The loop completely controls you.
Yeah, yours an autopilot.
But when you create that space, the dynamic shifts. In that space, you still have goals. You still care deeply about the quality of your research document. You still take action.
But I'm not attached to the drama of it.
Exactly. The desire for validation, the fear of criticism, and the anger of unmet expectations lose their absolute tyrannical grip on your choices.
Because I'm no longer just a bundle of exposed nerves reacting to whatever Slack message comes my way.
You become the observer of the emotional loop, rather than the helpless victim of it.
Right.
You can pursue excellence in your career without being emotionally destroyed if you don't get the promotion this quarter.
Right.
You can receive highly critical feedback on your work without flashing into defensive, blinding anger. By dismantling that toxic loop, you allow yourself to act with unparalleled clarity, composition, and true professional excellence. You're acting out of deep purpose rather than out of panic.
Acting out of purpose, not panic.
Yeah.
That is the true value of that space between stimulus and reaction. It's not about caring less about the work. It's about not letting your emotional attachments to the outcome destroy your ability to actually do the work.
It is a fundamental shift in how you operate as a human being.
So, what does this all mean? Let's bring this entire journey together for you, the listener. We started this deep dive looking for a practical way to deal with the crushing weight of modern burnout.
And we found it.
Yeah. What we found in two ancient verses from chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita is that true peace of mind isn't some abstract, floaty concept reserved for mystics. It is a highly practical, sequential, and deeply biological process.
It is an actionable protocol that you can deploy at literally any moment.
It starts by defending your attention, putting up the boundaries and shutting out the artificial sensory overload of the digital world.
The digital hygiene.
Right. Then it moves to the physical body, calming the nervous system, cutting the microphone feedback loop of your fight or flight response through the simple mechanical act of fixing your gaze and equalizing your breath.
Hacking the hardware.
Exactly. And finally, with the environment blocked and the body stabilized, it targets the mind. It dismantles the toxic loop of desire, fear, and anger by creating that vital space between what the world throws at you and how you choose to respond.
It is a phenomenal operating manual for the human condition. The fact that it is as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago speaks to the universal reality of how our minds and bodies actually work.
It really is staggering to see ancient wisdom mapped so perfectly onto modern neuroscience, and I want to leave you, the listener, with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
Oh, I'm ready for this.
We've spent this entire deep dive looking at this ancient blueprint as a tool for your own personal survival and professional excellence. But zoom out for a second and consider this. Almost our entirely modern economy, from the multi-billion-dollar advertising industry to the incredibly sophisticated algorithms that power every single social media platform on your phone, is explicitly engineered to trigger your desire, your fear, and your anger.
That's entirely true.
That is how they guarantee you keep clicking. That toxic trio isn't just a personal psychological trap, it is their foundational business model. So if you and enough people like you actually master this ancient blueprint, if you learn to equalize your breath, create that unshakable space between stimulus and reaction, and step outside of the loop, what happens to a world that completely relies on your constant state of internal chaos to function? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we will see you next time.